Morena koutou and a very warm welcome to this morning's council meeting. I'll just open us with a council prayer. We gather here today and ask for your blessing on our work, on our thinking, on our dialogue, on our actions. Send us your spirit so that we may discern the better way, mindful of the impact on our decisions, especially on those who are most vulnerable, and on the earth, our common home. Help us to treat each other with respect so that all can have their say. May we let in the fresh air of humour and good grace. Let us not cling to long-held opinion, but be prepared to listen, to change our minds, to be surprised by insight and new perspectives. Let us leave room for your spirit to inspire, to challenge, to change. We make this in all our prayers through Christ our Lord. Amen. Right. Now, I do have an apology today from Councillor Petty Weber. Can I have somebody move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Chase. Seconded, Councillor Wards. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Right, we don't have anyone here for public forum. Notification of items not on the agenda. There are none. Thank you, councillors. Declaration of conflicts of interest in relation to today's meeting. None. Right, the confirmation of the minutes. Can I have somebody move that the council meeting minutes for the 26th of February 2025 be confirmed as a true and correct record of the meeting? Move Councillor Franklin, seconded Councillor Wallace. All those in favour, please say aye. And I'll just go through those page by page. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Page 11. Page 12. 13. 14. 15. Sorry, Councillor Long?
Through you, Mayor Tracy. On the approval of those minutes here, the council received, or councillors received correspondence. Thank you. The contestable fund, councillors received notification 3 days later, and I believe that information may have had a bearing on their decision. So I would like to look at that contestable fund application.
So I'm just going to...
We received it in confidence.
Yeah, okay. What I might do is I'm just going to park, I'll park that because I've got no idea of the email that you're referring to or the bit, so I'll park it to the end and I'll do a little bit of work in between, okay?
I'm prepared to say it's concerning the Pukaha application.
Okay, yep. So the minutes have been received and actually I'm declining that, Councillor Long. So that, yeah. So the decision's been made. The one question I have got is that the applicant's been notified of these. They've had letters sent to them. Okay, thank you.
So the
okay, page 16, page 17, page 18. Councillor Gilmore, you might have highlighted.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I just wanted to jump on to 11.5, the infrastructure, climate change and emergency management section, in particular where I made a request for a more detailed report to be provided to future meetings on the new Pahiatua pool. Note that in the last infrastructure meeting, which I didn't attend but did watch online, there wasn't that detailed report there. Subsequently, I followed up with the Chief Executive, and I'm grateful to him for sending us through some information, but I'd just like to reiterate my request to have that so it's a public document that can be shared.
Chief Executive, well, I guess I had the request for the comms plan for Norsewood Water and Dennyview Compounded Supply be looked at. Those are still on my actions as well, but they'll come through the climate change and thank you. Yeah, look forward to seeing those. And if anything's there prior, if it can be circulated out, especially around that comms plan. Thanks, Councillor Gilmore. Councillor Sutherland, if you would note those for action points on your agenda. Wonderful. Page 19. Page 20. Thank you, councillors. Community boards and committee reports. Can I have somebody move the Explore Pahiatua Community Committee report be received? Councillor Gilmore, Councillor John seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Page 21. Page 22. Page 23. Page 24. Page 25. Page 26. Page 27. And page 28. Thank you. The minutes of, and page 29 and 30. Right. Minutes of the Ekatahona Community Board and the Dennyview Community Board be received. Can I have somebody move those? Councillor Gilmore and seconded Councillor Johns. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Ekatahona Community Board, page 31. Page 32. Page 33. Page 34. Page 35. And page 36. Okay, Dennyview Community Board, page 38, page 39, page 40, page 41, page 42, page 43. I just had a wee note on page 43, 11.3. I didn't quite think that report was entirely accurate, so perhaps I'll go to the next community board meeting and discuss that. Just might be the way it was worded. Sorry, Councillor Chase.
Thank you. Through you, Tracy. 9.6, the Dennyview Multisports Complex. Are we able to get an update on that progress as well?
Absolutely, I think that's quite critical. We'll note that down if we can, Ali, just as an action point. Thank you. Right, page 44. Just noting the comment around boy races, and there's a real frustration within the community at the moment. And anything else on page 44? I can say the board did go out to the highway, which was great. And page 45, Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Your Worship, and not seeking information now, but on page 45, 13.4, the Rose Garden project, wondering if perhaps we could get an update at a future meeting regarding that. I know it specifically talks about health and safety there, so putting on my health and safety governance hat. But some of these things are great things organised by the community that I'm keen to see supported, so just wanted to raise that.
Thanks, Councillor Gilmore. You're singing the same song. I like that. Absolutely, the Dennyburg Lions did present to the Dennyburg Community Board, but I think it'd be great if we did have some form of update so Council knew. I think it's really quite an exciting one that will make them look great. Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Tracy, we seem to have wrapped the world in cotton. There must be a point where we can try and let humans be humans again. Like, I walked through the whole park the other day. I didn't get a permit. I took my grandson through there on a bike, went down a track, but I took the risk. Surely if somebody walks in there with a rake and a shovel, is going to clean a garden, we've got to pull this back into line. Have we got any means of licence to do that?
So I can update you somewhat. The health and safety plan that the organisers, so Barbara Ferguson and Sue Buchanan, have met with Kate Payne, who I notice is online. That meeting was great. So they've got a dedicated person to work with, and they were going through and talking about how to make those as practical as possible. So we'll get Kate to give us an update at a bit later on that. So I can tell you they are all comfortable at this stage, but it would be good to understand that because then we can take it back into other communities as well. Councillor Franklin.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question at 13.3. Is there any update on the kahikatea tree at Pongaroa, please? I haven't heard anything more, but that's 9 days ago now.
Through Your Worship, so the investigation is still in progress at this point. We will be getting some legal advice in terms of the next actions until the investigation is completed. It's probably not much more than what we can say, but I guess one of the big points I would like to say is that there has been some finger pointing towards council in terms of being involved. I'm happy to be able to say here that certainly no permission was granted by council to cut the tree. However, there are a lot of other factors that we are working through as well in terms of why and how the tree was cut, and that will come out once the investigation's over.
Supplementary to that, thanks, Brian. I'd just like to request that when things like that happen on social media, that council comms actually shut that down as quickly as possible, because it was really quite a veiled accusation, and it was pretty obvious what the intent was. So,
Thanks, Councillor Franklin. I did bring that to the Chief Executive's attention, but he was unable to do that at that stage because of the investigation. Yeah, so, Councillor Long.
Through you, Mayor Tracy, is it a police matter or a council matter?
It's a council matter, so we're the administering authority under the Reserves Act, so it's up to this local territorial authority to conduct the investigation.
Right, thank you, councillors. We'll move on to the reports. First report up, 9.1, the Tararua District Reserves Management Plan. So, welcome, Carter.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good morning, councillors. So the first report we have here is the RNP plan. So I'll take the report as read, and we have online Nikki Malone from Exist who will be able to answer any questions you may have. So really the purpose of the plan, of the report, is to seek your approval, to publicly notify the plan, and also if we do receive any submissions, is to establish a hearings panel to go through the submissions process. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, does anyone have any questions for Carter or Fontaine? It's a very big piece of work. Okay. I do have one in the introduction and some of the Tararua district information that I'd like to put some corrections through. I'm happy to do that directly to you, just in tweaks in those, but that's just intro and district information. Yep, Councillor Wards.
There you go. Thank you, Your Worship. Great piece of work, Carter. I never realised how extensive and how comprehensive the production of this type of plan has required. I'm curious, though, to explore a little bit more. You've indicated the ramifications on two of the current management plans, Akatio and the Domain, and how they'll get pulled into this if we go forward with this. But I'm curious to understand, in your recommendations, you've given us a good scenario of the the 4 options, and you've indicated there is some cost if we chose, for instance, the independent commissioner pathway. Is there any idea of the impact of that on our financials? Would it be included within our current budget, or is that something that we would have to be cognizant of? It's on page 51 of...
Page 51.
Yeah. I mean, effectively you're saying we can either have a little committee, we can have the whole council, we can have someone independent that chairs the council, or we can... So 2 of those would involve... I assume we'd have to pay for an independent commissioner, wouldn't we? So just curious to understand how that might get factored in, if that's an option. I'm running out of voice that we choose.
Thanks, Councillor Wards. Nikki's just got a comment online if you'd like to go to that first, Carter. Nikki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can probably speak more general about the costs of a commissioner rather than council budgets, but in my experience, it's something for one-day hearing, probably between $8,000 and $10,000 that you're looking at to engage an independent commissioner. So I'll hand over to Kata in terms of available budgets.
Thank you, Nikki. Through you, Your Worship, I believe we have budgeted for that option. I can get the details for you if that's required, but we have factored that into our budgeting process.
Thank you, Councillor Gilmore, and then Councillor Sutherland and Councillor Johns.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Great piece of work. So thank you very much. It is very, very comprehensive. I just wanted to quickly touch on, I'm fine for this to go out, but the makeup of the panel, I think option 2, personally, is a prudent option because we do have 2 certified RMA commissioners sitting at this table with Mayor Tracy and myself. And I suppose because of the complexity of this not being the same as like a full district plan review, understand that we have budget for that at 8,000 to 10,000 or whatever that may well be, but wouldn't it be nice if we could save that potentially? So when I read it, option 1 I thought was potentially fine as well. Having a smaller group, I'd be comfortable with that if everyone wants to be involved. Option 2 I would also support, so that's where I sit. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, Councillor Gilmore. Councillor Johns.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. Yes, I opted for option 2, I have to say. But I do have one question. The Esplanade reserves that feature on the document, have they in the main been recent creations through subdivisions? Do you know?
No, not...
I'm happy to take that one if you'd like.
Thanks, Nick.
Nikki.
So some of them are, a lot of them are, but not all of them. Some are slightly older pieces of land as well that have been vested in council for a number of years already. But often it is through more recent subdivisions that they come over to council.
Right, sorry, further to that, if I may, is it still our policy to create esplanade reserves with subdivisions? E.g., if there's a stream running through,
It's possible,
is.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So the planning manager's just responded yes.
And that is, well, further quick. Yeah, I haven't turned it off. How wide does the stream need to be before it becomes an automatic creation of an esplanade reserve?
So we take esplanade strips, the average width of the stream or the river.
Sorry, Amy, you'll need to come. No one online can hear, that's all. Thank you.
The average width of the stream or river must be 3 metres wide to trigger it under the RMA. And we only take it for subdivisions where you're creating a lot that adjoins a river with an average width of 3 metres and it's less than 4 hectares. Over 4 hectares, we don't take them because council has to reimburse the landowner for the land that they were losing, effectively. But we do a 20 metre wide esplanade strip.
Each side.
Yep.
Councillor Wards.
I'm not sure how you wish to approach this, Your Worship, but I do have some questions further on through the report, if you're happy for me to take those. I mean, the reason I congratulate all of the team on producing this is the complexity and all of the overlapping acts and legislation and bylaws and compliance matters that you've got. But there'll be no surprise, but I would like to focus just briefly on Akatio and see if in my mind, when I read through all this, that I've got it in my head what adopting this would mean for the Akatio foreshore. And my summation, and I'm looking at you, Fontaine and Carter, to make sure I've got it right, is what is being proposed here is that the foreshore, as it stands near the toilet block, that piece, and it's lovely Norfolk pines and everything, what is being proposed in here is that there will be an element of freedom camping, which is another part of today's meeting, where there would be limited tents close to the toilet facilities, but the rest of it would be for self-contained accommodation. In the context of this, we're going to be allowing that. It will still be a reserve. So I guess I have some questions on compliance and how we might monitor that. There's details in here about the kind of signage and waste management and a whole lot of overlapping stuff. And I know there are 80-something reserves, so I'm only picking on one in particular. But adoption of something like this has implications for monitoring compliance and other services that council provide. So have I got it in my head right that things will change on that foreshore? No, you're shaking your head.
So the intent of the RMP is to allow for activities like that
To happen.
Yeah, to happen. And so when we developed the RMP, we thought about the activities that currently, how the community currently uses that space, and noted that it is the only area that we do actually have a boat ramp. So we made sure to incorporate that in there. But my understanding is that the freedom camping bylaw looks after the compliance side of that.
Okay.
And would sit beside the RMP and how we deliver on that. But am I right, Jim? Like that the bylaw itself, if that was to come
Will be the
into,
tools in the toolkit.
yeah.
Okay. Supplementary, because I was curious to some fantastic maps that you've provided. There's a lot of bitsy stuff goes on in Pongaroa. How on earth do you pull all that together into managing reserves?
That's what we inherited through the Akatio County Council.
Anyway, yes, it is a good answer. I couldn't believe how many pages there were. And just to ensure I had some community input, I took a photo of the plan with all its little, and sent it through to a member of the public. And I said, do you know this is what's happening? And they went, yeah, and I'm going, oh. So, yeah, I'm pleased that we've got this all in one. It must have been an amazing piece of hard work there. So, thank you for that. So what you're saying though, Fontaine, is whatever's happening there at the moment, we've tried to reflect that in this overall plan. So we've got a way of moving forward to be able to either be accountable for it, because there's another reserve in there, the one that you turn off at the Ngāparu turn off that we've had presentations to the community board about, and accountability for that. So this doesn't mean that we have to be responsible for maintaining all of these 80 reserves. It's just trying to capture what currently happens. Is that correct?
It also allows for it. It also is a good tool for council to use when we are requesting, when the community or others are requesting to use council land.
Right.
So we're looking at those activities. We look at the district plan. But the reserves and how we are managing them under the Reserves Act, that's what this tool is for.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thanks, Councillor Wards, and the number of times I've heard that the Akatio County Council was the best. So they left us lots of documentation. Right, I'll go to Councillor Johns, then Councillor Sutherland.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. A couple of things here. One is overnight accommodation, or a limit on how many nights people can stay in a certain place, and it's become an issue in the district. Are we to make a decision today as to what that should be? 2 nights, 3 nights maximum?
No, Councillor Johns, and the freedom camping will be in another item.
Sorry?
No, we're not making that decision today, and the freedom camping is in another item on the agenda. Not
Okay.
this one.
Secondly, naming of reserves. I see there's a desire to have Maori names in preference to any other. I think we need to be a wee bit careful on that. While I don't have an issue with that so much, there are reserves where they've been named for somebody that virtually created the reserve. An example of that's Patterson's Bush at Kumaroa. He created the reserve and made sure that the native forest was maintained there. I'd hate to think that the name would be changed for whatever reason to a Maori name. So what are you actually proposing in terms? Are you looking to change some of those reserve names to Maori names?
No, the intent isn't for that at all. We're not looking to change anything. We've tried to capture how these parks and reserves are being utilised currently and look after those. In an ideal world, if we had the budget to, we would love to be able to go and create those stories for all of those reserves. But that's a nice wish list to have. Yeah, so the desire isn't for us to go out there and change all of those. It's capturing and making sure that the right names are on there. And like you say, that they were created by those individuals, and so they should be kept like that. But there is the work that has been put into the RMP was done in collaboration with both our iwi partners. So, you know, and the delivery of it and our operations will be done alongside our iwi partners to make sure that we're looking after our reserves and honouring the cultural aspect of them as well. But anything like that, it needs to come back to a forum for approval for those changes to be made. That's not just something that we will go and do.
Oh, that's fine. Thanks for that.
Thanks, Councillor Johns. Perhaps if you could record some of that information around Peterson's Bush would be helpful too, with your knowledge. Peter, sorry, Councillor Johns, can I get you to turn your mic off? Thank you. Wonderful. Councillor Sutherland.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. I think at this stage it's obviously the plan's here and we just need to get on with it. There'll be a forum to discuss these things in detail. I don't think we'll be bogged down here for a month if we try and talk about 80 reserves. But two things before. I'm strongly in favour of option 2 myself, and I think we should appoint some of the councillors to hear submissions myself. It's not just financial, but I think I think collectively with the staff and the councils around here, there is not much we don't know about the district, and I don't see any reason to seek outside chairmanship of this. So I would probably I'd like to move that at some stage, but just to get getting my head around the process. So if us as a collective governance or individual councils want to make some recommendations to the hearing, is there a process for that? Do we just do that individually, or would we discuss that as a council and put those things to the forum, to the committee that will hear this? Just that, don't have to answer that now, but I'm just thinking there'll be obviously Councillor Peter has got some comments about that, and there's others. Sharon has got some thoughts about Ponga and Akatio. Would we formally do that ourselves or collectively?
I can answer that. So no, and I'm sure Councillor Ward's Akatio's community's got a very effective ratepayers association. It would come through there. Peterson's Bush would come through, you know, positively Woodville. There are other avenues, but if a councillor makes an individual submission to this, they will not sit on any panel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll just finish it before Councillor Steve.
Yeah.
So our comments will be considered once the committee sits and makes recommendations, and then we'll have to do our bit after that, won't we? Yeah, okay. Right, I'm happy with that, but I'd be happy to move option 2 as to some of the councillors.
I've just got some more questions in the queue, so I'll come back to you, Councillor Sutherland and Councillor Johns around that. Just to, Ali also made the point that any councillor making a submission also cannot sit on the council that makes the decision, just for completeness there. Right, I'll go to Councillor Franklin, then I've got Councillor Gilmore and Councillor Wallace.
I hope this doesn't appear nitpicky, but on page 117 in Pahiatua, it's Victory Park, not Victoria Park.
Thank you, Councillor Franklin. Right, Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I just wanted to quickly jump in to make sure we're really clear on the options that are in front of us, and I don't disagree with anything that Councillor Sutherland has talked about. However, if we move in the direction of option 2, which Councillor Sutherland's indicated that he'd like to move, that would be we do have to be really, really careful as to what councillors are appointed. Now, there's also workload considerations, so I do think this is something that we can give some consideration to. My question with this, though, is are we going to have to decide the composition of that group now, or do we just make a decision in option 2 that that's the way we want to go? I'm just trying to work out how we might create that composition.
Thanks, Councillor Gilmore. I thought it was an interesting way in the paper, because we do have a hearings panel that consists of Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Gilmore and myself, so two of us being commissioners, and the other with experience. Ellie's just written, no, we cannot use the hearings panel.
We don't have it formally constituted.
Okay, that's fine. So therefore we do need to have that discussion today around this very difficult paper. Sorry, in the queue, so Councillor Wallace, and then I'm going to spend a lot of time working this with the recommendations out.
Thank you, Mayor Tracy. Yeah, no, I fully agree with Councillor Sullivan on this, so I'm happy to second it. But because I'll also reflect back in time about what Councillor Peter said. We had a bush when I was a kid. There was a bush right in the middle of town, and it was gifted to the town people of Dannevirke, to the council, and it got flattened. So if we still had that bush in Dannevirke now, we would see huge remus. We would see right in the middle of Dannevirke. But he did get a street named after him, Fraser Collins. So yeah, so this is where we've got, so I'm pleased this piece of work's been done, and I'm also very pleased that we're looking at it for the future of our grandchildren, because those trees now would have been unbelievable to go through with those kids, because as I said, you take to some magic places in our district, and I would hate, so yeah, good work. Option 2.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Councillor Johns.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. It's just a query. On page 111, there's a plantation reserve, Woodville, 2 of them there, but they're in part section 49R, block 6, Norsewood Survey District.
Yeah.
It's huge. Seems a bit odd. Oh, well.
We're in the Manawatu too.
Thanks, Councillor Johns. Do you want to pop your mic off? Do you want to pop your mic off, Councillor Johns? Thank you. Right, okay, the democracy manager's just writing up some recommendations and changes I've gone through. It's quite complex, but I've got some, yep, we've got 3 in the queue now.
Just a quick question, Mayor Tracy. So you comment on the hearings committee currently, and you mentioned yourself, Scott, and myself. Is that just for the liquor hearings?
It's not a formal committee, so Ellie said, yeah.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
that's okay.
No,
Yep.
so that one's null and void. So I'll go to Councillor Long, and no, Councillor Long's fine. Councillor Wards.
It may be premature, Your Worship, but what criteria would be applied to councillors who it wouldn't be appropriate for them to be considered? So I guess I'm looking at myself as a owner of property that looks on one of these reserves. I guess I'm seeking guidance as to whether or not that's too conflicted and I should not be part of the consideration of being part of this. So I'm seeking clarification as to, because I mean all of us have probably got different little issues around where the because I'm
So through your worship, and I'm happy to be corrected by the others here, I don't think there's a specific criteria in terms of what we're asking for. So the resolution is asking for all or some councillors, but however, there would also be your obligation to declare conflicts in terms of any sort of process that you're part of, and it might be that you declare a conflict for just that part of it as well, and then could move away if anything, discuss on that. So I think it's just normal sort of council practice.
Thanks, Councillor Wards, and just noting, yeah, it is real or perceived, but those issues will exist for everybody here, but thank you for that. Right, we'll move into the recommendations. So thank you, Ellie's just written one here. So 1.1 is to receive the report. Then we're going into approve the draft district reserve management plan for public consultation with minor corrections into the intro. That'll cover the spelling error and the little bits that I want to change. And then that 1.3, appoint a hearings panel consisting of the mayor and councillors. So councillors, do you wish to indicate who would be interested in sitting on that hearings panel, noting that the full decision comes back to council? So Councillor Gilmore, Councillor Johns, Councillor Wallace, Councillor Chase, Councillor Wards, Councillor Long, and no, okay. So did I get everybody there? So we've got Councillor Gilmore, Johns, Wallace, Chase, Wards and Long and myself. Okay. To the hearing panel. 1.3, that we hear submissions and make recommendations to the council. 1.32, consider the extent to which objections and comments should be allowed, accepted or disallowed or not accepted. And endorse the proposed engagement approach for consultation in the draft plan, and just noting that the decision to approve the final Tararua Reserves Management Plan will remain with full council. So Councillor Sutherland, were you happy to move that? And Councillor Wallace, you happy to second that? All those in favour, please say aye. I just looked at my paper and I had Councillor Johns written there. I'll take that. Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Apologies, Councillor Johns. Right, thank you very much, and I acknowledge that piece of work has been requested by this council and something that's been desired for a decade. It's a really tough piece of work, so to get this over the line is just a huge congratulations. I think it's been something that's been dreading, but it is what we need to move forward as a district, so thank you very, very much. Right, item 9.2, the resolution for response to the direct debit error. So it's Rebecca on. Rebecca's not online. We've got Raj and Jess. Okay. Thank you. Welcome.
Oh, okay.
Welcome, Rebecca. Sorry I couldn't see you online there.
Kia ora. Nice to join you. Okay, so today we are coming back with a brief update on where we're up to with our direct debit numbers in the direct debit project, but also we are looking to find a resolution to council's response to the impacted households. So I'll give you a brief update on where we're at with the numbers, and then we'll look at the options that management have suggested for how we might wrap up the project by making sure we've got a resolution for all of the outstanding impacted households. Since the deadline for this report, we've had an additional 6 households resolved, so we're working our way through it slowly, and each day we make a little bit more progress. So that's where we're up to with that. In terms of the discussion item in the report, I don't think there's too much to outline there, other than to just move straight to our suggested options for resolution. So management has got 3 options that it is suggesting, but with option 1 being its preferred option. So option 1 is that On the 30th of June, any of our affected households who still have arrears outstanding from the direct debit issue would be transferred to our existing debt management process. So that would involve being transferred to a place where they would be receiving penalties and arrears. I think Raj had a point that he wanted to, penalties and interest. Raj had a point he wanted to clarify in this point. At 5.4.1.
Yeah, thank you to your worship. Just to clarify two things. One, it's in terms of the options, council would, the management doesn't have, in a sense, a preferred option as to the three options. And I think we discussed, and I discussed with Brian as well, and I think we'd like to present those three options, and as councillors would, I guess, through discussions, suggest to council or direct council as to which options you would prefer. And to Rebecca's question, just to clarify, for the option one, and I think just to clarify, there's two elements there. One is the arrears that the ratepayer, impacted ratepayers has because of council error, and then you have the current rates that we're going through. So as we transfer the debt through a normal debt management process, we would like to ensure that the arrears is treated as how we initially did say, it will not incur any penalties. So the arrears balance will not incur any penalties. And that's the messaging we set from the very start, and that's what we would like to do. The current rates were those that have not gone down a DD option, which is council's preferred option, where any ratepayers who select a DD for payments, we do not apply penalties to it. That would continue. Those that have opted out of a DD and gone into AP and gone into an arrangement, council's current practice is we'll have the flag for the penalties turned on. They'll incur the penalties. However, if they honor the payments, the penalties will be written off at the end. So it's consistent with how we do it currently. So that's how we want to treat those two separately. Current arrears, we honor the decision that we made from the start that we will not incur any penalties. Just want to clarify that.
Raj, I wonder if perhaps you want to go through the other options.
Can I just take a question? Yeah, could I just take a question on that first, just that part? Thanks, Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I won't jump into where I'm at with it, but just a clarification. Raj, if you could just help me out with option 1 and option 2. Were you just saying that option 1 wouldn't apply penalties to the debt that was created through the error? Because my reading of it, and this is just where I just got a bit stuck here, my reading of it is that was specifically option 2. Option 1 absolutely appears to, the way it's written in our papers, absolutely appears to add a penalty on to the error. And I'll have some comments around that when we get to that part, but I may have misheard or misinterpreted. I just want to double check, because it didn't sound like how I'd interpreted it in the paper. And I think we have to be really careful if we approve it, if it's written like this. So if I could just, check that, please.
Thanks, Councillor Gilmore.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I think our intention was that either options, if you look at option 1, in a sense, the arrears do not attract penalties. Penalties will be applied to, if let's say, for current debtors.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Raj. Did you want to run through? Oh, sorry, Councillor Wallace. Noting that Raj will run through option 2 and 3.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor Tracy. So if you read that last sentence on page 203, Just, yeah, that's what exactly what Councillor Gilmore was talking about. So just explain that in English. Thank you.
You're referring to 5.4.1? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, the last sentence says this means that the balance owing will start to incur both arrears and current penalties where direct debit has been cancelled from 1st July and the balance will be transferred. So the first part is that what we're saying is that this means that the balance owing will start to incur penalties for current. And the caveat to say that where direct debit has been cancelled, and I think what the report is saying is that is in council's normal debt management process, when a ratepayer is on an AP process, the penalties flag is turned on, so the ratepayers start to incur penalties. When the ratepayers has completed a payment plan or kept current with the current rates, then the penalties will be remitted. But what we're saying is here is because the direct debit, because of the arrears is a result of council's error, and right from the very start, we did say that the arrears will not attract any penalties, regardless of whether the ratepayer is on a DD or they've cancelled the direct debits and gone into an AP process. We're saying that the arrears will not attract any penalties. However, if they have cancelled their direct debit and gone into an AP for the current rates, and if they are falling behind on the current rates, then that current rates would attract penalties.
Councillor Gilmore?
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Raj, I am still a little bit confused with that, because if we go to page 205, 6.1.2, looking at option 1, the disadvantages of option 1 is it could be perceived as unfair to impose penalties on the arrears balance of impacted households where these balances are caused by council error, which to my mind says if it's a disadvantage of the policy, that means that that will happen and arrears will be charged on balances that were caused by the error. So I am slightly concerned, and look, to be frank, my preferred option would actually be option 2, which would make this moot anyhow, but if people do want to go to option 1, I just want us to be absolutely certain what the consequences of that might be.
So through your worship, so I guess probably in the nutshell, and actually Councillor Gilmore, you sort of covered it, that there's 2 options here really. As one is that we'll continue not applying penalties in terms of option 2, which was agreed at the start of the process. Option 1 would be looking at incurring penalties from the 1st of July on the current amount, but not backdated from when these first started at anything. So really that 2 options, do you want to decide not that they shouldn't incur any penalties, noting that when we talk about, and it is a little bit complex because there will be those that do default through their own means, whether that's on an AP or direct debit, but they will be treated as per our debt management policies in terms of they will fall into that because they're actually a different separate field. And then on this one, really what we're asking in a nutshell, penalties, yes or no, from the 1st of July.
Thanks, Brian. Councillor Johns?
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. Yes, I initially had marked option 2 as my preference, and I fully support the comments made by Councillor Gilmore. However, option 1 puts a deadline on it, and I dare say there'll be some out there who are just holding off and holding off and holding off, and this might give them an incentive to make a decision as to what they're going to do. And if for that reason, I accept your comment, Raj, that might be a means by which it speeds up the process if they've suddenly realised they're going to be up for for interest. So I'm a bit torn in my thinking, but if that is the intention, I'd support option 1. Otherwise, I'll stick with my original thought of option 2.
Thanks, Councillor Johns. I'll just get Brian to make a comment on that one. And I've got Councillor Gilmore and Franklin in queue.
So through your worship, so my understanding of that is that we would still chase, through a process of collecting the outstanding amounts. It just won't have an interest or a portion applied to it.
Raj.
Through your worship, just to clarify, option 1, option 2 has got a deadline of 30th of June. Yeah. Option 3 is where we granting an extension.
Thank you for that. Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Thanks for presenting this. It's good to see where we're at and the options that we have. Just want to share where I'm at, and I'd certainly be happy to move in that direction when we get to that point. I personally am strongly opposed to option 1, considering that the error was caused by us. I don't think that it's appropriate to be doing that. In the same light, I'm also opposed to option 3 because I don't think that this can just carry on. Option 2, for me, seems like a sensible middle ground, one where we can be managing that process. My request for option 2, though, which is similar to option 1, and we have the bullet points of what's going to be covered, I would specifically like to have added in there that they are given the option to postpone, because that's not in there for the options. That's certainly one that many may be able to take up. So that would be my request, that that's added in there. Option 2, though, I think recognises that council made an error, but also recognises that we do have to manage outstanding funds in a fair way. So when we come to that point, Your Worship, I will be very happy to move that option. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Gilmore. Councillor Franklin.
Thank you, Worship. I'm of the same mindset as Scott. What concerns me more than anything is that we were confused by this. You get an elderly lady living alone is going to be completely confused by this. To me, I put a question mark. Option 2 was certainly my preferred option. And a 6.2.1e, what can we do to help? I think we need to involve our councillors in this, whether there needs to be a really simply written, easy to understand explanation that goes out with this. I don't know how you would craft that, but I think there needs to be something that they can read to family if they need to, rather than just being faced with, a lot of them have said to me they will never ever not open their rates again, even if they're paying by direct debit. They thought they were safe, and they realised that that was a fail on their part as well. But a lot of these are older people living alone, and that's my biggest concern, is that we're going to re-victimise our victims. So I think councillors need to be involved in this process as well when dealing with the people. Thank you.
So through your worship, I think there has been multiple conversations with the majority of these people from the start and throughout the last, sort of 6 to 8 months. There is a couple that we're still probably struggling with, but I think we've come to the stage where they do, in my view, understand. But I do agree that this letter and this sort of final reminder will have to be really, really clear. And I'm just wondering if whether or not there are some ones there that the team's identified that does need a bit of care around this, then they can work with the mayor and councillors to identify that and pull you in and involved. I don't think it should be a blanket decision across all, because there are some we know of that are just refusing for their own, stubbornness or whatever reason they have, and you can understand the impact on that. But I think it's just drawing the line in the sand to say, look, beyond 1st of July, we've got to do something different. But I'll ask the team to go through that list and contact, especially those in your areas to help us sort of, and the Mayor's had a good example of one where the Mayor jumped in the other day and they weren't going to sign it, and she told him off and told him to sign it, and he signed it and went out. There are advantages with this happening as well. She didn't tell him off, but I said that in jest.
Can I just clarify that I did give some, I guess, personal recommendation and able to have that conversation and to talk about that a little bit further. That was all. I didn't tell anyone off. Thank you, Brian. Right, okay. Now, sorry, I've got Councillor Sutherland, then Councillor Wards and Councillor Franklin again. Put me off.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. Scott completely extrapolated what I was going to say in every respect. Option 2 with just clarifying the postponement there, but we need to get on with it. The other thing that's concerning me, we have staff involved in that. We've got to sort of wind this up really. There are ongoing costs to this, and we're bogged down at 60 people. And there's a reason not all those people will be elderly by any stretch of the imagination. They are a group of, quite a few of those people are not going to activate anything. They are quite hard line, some of those. Some of them are seeking legal advice and want all sorts of reasons. But so they're tough. Some of those people are quite strong about their views about this. But I think we give them an option. There's the date, you postpone it or you go into the system. Any letters that go out to a final letter that might go out, I think could give all ratepayers the option to ring councils and seek a discussion. I think we'd all be happy to do that if we could make it. It's going to be really hard for staff to manage this last 60 people. So let's just do that, get on with it. Let's get the rates department getting on with their business as usual. We need to just move on. I don't know how much money's involved left with the 60, but it's probably not huge. I don't know, it's a lot of, everything's huge, but I think it's time to get on with it, isn't it? And that's my view. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Sutherland. Rebecca, you wanted to make a comment?
I just wanted to say that while we will send out a letter to the outstanding 60, or it's even we're now getting down into the 50s, shortly expressing your decision. By the time we get to the 30th of June, I would expect that the numbers would be much, much lower. So we are still resolving cases week by week, and so and many of them are still in a positive frame of mind about it. Then there are a few who are digging in their toes, and there are many who are not. They just haven't gotten around to it or whatever. So I think there will be a small number of people by the 30th of June that need to be passed on. I certainly don't think we'll be anywhere near 60 at that point.
Thank you for that clarification. Councillor Wards.
Thanks, Your Worship. Some of what Councillor Sutherland has said I can certainly concur with, and thanks, Rebecca, for that reassurance. Do we have any idea how long the legal challenge is there a timeline on that? Because that may have an influence.
I think one of the things about those who have said that they're seeking legal advice is that their response to us has been, we're not saying anything, we're not doing anything, we're seeking legal advice. So we don't know what they're doing with their lawyer. But I suggest we send a letter to the lawyers,
as well,
local lawyers, to say this is where we're headed, and it would be great if you could encourage your people to, if you're representing somebody, because we don't know which lawyers are representing which people. So I think it would be useful to just ask the lawyers to engage with those people who have approached them around this council decision. So that's really all we can do, I think, at this point. Encourage them in that regard, and then otherwise they would be treated like any other person who had arrears still outstanding at the 30th of June.
Right. And supplementary through you, Your Worship, I just want to endorse the fact that I will support option 2, but I want to acknowledge and thank the staff that are having to front up for these conversations. They will not be easy ones with some of these ratepayers, and I want to acknowledge the hard work that's gone in, the empathy that you've had to show, and the fact that this has been a tough time. So just want to acknowledge and thank everyone that's been involved in that.
Thank you, Councillor Wards. Rebecca, I just wonder whether there is some benefit in contacting community law, because that is the only organisation that I'm aware of that has had some contacts. So, and that may be one that there is
Yes,
some
yeah,
choice going to that could
for
be
sure.
beneficial. Thank you. Councillor Franklin.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. No, I think everything's been covered now. I'm just concerned when I hear those words, consulting a lawyer. That's been going on for months now. That's possibly a bit of a stalling tactic for some. There's no question about that. But we have to, we look at how long it's taken to get them to return the forms that they've filled out when they've made the decision. That's what I'm struggling with, is why is it taking them so long? It seems bizarre to me, but yeah, that's what
We
it
did
is.
have we did encounter a bit of a challenge when we started making the callbacks early in the year. Quite a lot of people said that they hadn't. So back in November, we sent out drafted postponement agreements so that for people to just sign and return, to try and make it as easy as possible. And we gave them the time over the summer to think about it and to do summer things. And then in the new year, we gave everybody an individual call back to remind them. And quite a few of those people said that they didn't receive the mail out that we sent in November. And we are really perplexed as to why that could be, because a lot of people did, and a lot of people returned their agreement. So I suspect there was quite a few that were just chucked in the bin without being opened. And I'm not sure. So we've had to send out quite a few copies of the ones we sent out in November. So that was a little bit frustrating, because obviously that was a bit of a setback. We could have avoided that if we had known that they didn't receive their copy in November, but we've just had to roll with that. So that has extended things a little bit. But we're back with, everybody has got a copy, and we are getting them rolling in now.
Thanks, Rebecca. Councillor Franklin, can I just check you're supporting option 2?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Tracy. A couple of things. Great to see it. I'm in favour of option 2 because of the logic and the date in there. We need to move on. We need to get this wrapped up. Two things. One is the people, there's 165, by this document, 165 households in credit. So I imagine they're getting current interest rates applied to that. They're getting money back for that money. Like if you had that money in the bank, you'd be accruing interest, right? So they must be getting their money back. The interest, I mean.
Through Your Worship, no, most people that were in credit have been already repaid or had it applied to their rates for the year. So there's only one household in credit that hasn't had their rates their credit either applied to their rates or refunded.
Okay, so that's good. So that what you're saying then the credit is right out to the end of that is used up.
Yes, so we've basically resolved that, and the paper is around the arrears balances.
Great.
Because we've basically resolved, apart from one household.
Yeah, you see what I mean about money? People like the interest of their money. Now, the other thing was, as I said, by the time this goes out, you'll be getting down to about 30-odd households, hopefully. And finally, because this is a public meeting, I think the people of Dannevirke that have got all these different things going, and the whole district, I should say, thank you, Councillor Scott, the whole district wants to know we've got nice new things in place that this has gone away.
Okay, thanks, Brian.
Through your worship, and that we're treating that part of it through a separate report. So those are the recommendations through the investigation, and we're tracking pretty good progress on that. But it is going to take months rather than weeks to fully resolve. So at this point in time, there are improvements put in place, but it's not completed.
That's great.
Thank you. Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I'd just like to move the recommendation, if that's okay. So I'd like to move option 1.1, recommendation 1.1 as written. 1.2, that the council resolves to adopt option 2 with the addition of adding a postponement option.
Thank you. That's what I had written down. So we've got a mover and a seconder for that. Raj, did you wish to make one final comment before I move it? Sorry, Councillor Wards was the seconder.
Sorry, through your worship, just to, if you look to para 6.2 F, which is option 2, which is a preferred option, could be the preferred option for council. We did indicate there the household will have options available to them at any time during the process. So if we choose option 2, and at any time the impacted ratepayer chooses to adopt the rates postponement, they can. The option is still available to them because they're still eligible to apply for the rates postponement.
Thank you. Right. Got a mover and a seconder. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, councillors, and thank you to the team that are doing that. It is tough work and very hard on the end of those phones and dealing with people. So we do acknowledge all of that. And as much as we would like this finished, actually people do need time and they do need to discuss this with family and make sure it's the right decision. So thank you also for your patience and kindness in carrying that out. Thanks, Rebecca. Councillors, we might adjourn for 15 minutes and come back at 11 o'clock. Okay.
We're not really asking for any direction at this stage. It's just an update because we committed to giving you that at this time.
Okay, thank you.
That's okay.
That's absolutely fine. Right, councillors, item 9.3. Thanks, Amy. Mercury Energies Limited's pre-consultation summary on the Puketoi wind farm and stakeholder feedback on potential paper road stopping. Welcome, Amy.
Through you, Your Worship, I take the report as read. We do have James Gregory online who can answer any questions that the elected may have with respect to the pre-consultation work that they've undertaken.
Thank you, councillors. Are there any queries? I think for me it was just a summary of engagement. I note that you are still waiting for some feedback from iwi. Has that been, has that arrived, or when you any dates that you might be expecting that?
Not at this stage. We have been in contact and we're trying to set up a meeting. It's just been taking a bit longer than we'd hoped, but it's in the works. We plan to talk to them pretty soon, I think, over the next week or so, to get some firm feedback. Yeah, as we said we'd do.
Thank you. Councillor Chase.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Tracy. Other than the stakeholder groups, what other community are you going to be doing this consultation and engaging with to get their feedback about closing this paper road?
Yeah, sure. So this round of feedback was effectively pre-consultation. So some relevant user groups were identified who were sort of thought likely to use this asset and who might be impacted by the stopping. to get a bit of feedback on how the stopping would impact the community. That's not to say that we would not go through like a full wider round of public consultation that's required to do any paper road stopping down the line, and that includes things like posting notices in the paper, putting signs up at either end of the road that says we're thinking about stopping, and also speaking to all in detail to all connected landowners. So we will go through that process, provided the feedback here from the identified groups is we can get it across the line, we can get some positive outcomes at this stage.
Through you, Your Worship, if it goes through for a public road stopping, then it's subject to Schedule 10 of the Local Government Act 1974, so they will do public consultation as part of that.
Thanks, Amy. Councillor Wards.
Thanks, Your Worship, and I certainly commend you, James, in doing this stage of it. I mean, it's 50-50 at the moment with our iwi input, and I think that's absolutely critical. You're obviously working towards that, but yeah, I hope that the engagement that you've done so far has been seen as a positive step. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
I certainly think people appreciate the engagement. Yeah. I would say that the groups who have objected at this stage, their key bit of feedback that I took away was that they would like some form of access retained. And the way I see it, if we can work with them to ensure through some mechanism or other that their access can be maintained, we may be able to get them across the line. I don't think it was a hard kind of this. We can never let this happen. Was my takeaway.
Right, thanks, councillors. If there's nothing further, we've got the recommendation on page 209 to receive the report. Can I have somebody move that, please? Councillor Sutherland, second Councillor Johns. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Thanks very much, James. Right,
Thank you for your time.
We will now break until 11 a.m. Thank you. Right, welcome back, thank you. Item 9.4, Freedom Camping Bylaw, so welcome Angela and Jim.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Councillors. Before we move on, could I please redact 1.3? It's a recommendation that's not actually appropriate for this stage of the bylaw process.
Angela, can you speak closer to the mic?
So is that okay? Okay, so other than that, can we take that the report has been read, and does anybody have any questions?
Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I have a couple in here. First is more of a, I suppose, a technical question on the way that we did our consultation. I note we've done this one a little bit differently, where Facebook comments have been included in our paper, which is interesting because I've followed along on some of those discussions. That's the first time that we've had that come back through, the Facebook comments before. Is that something that we're going to be looking at doing now for all future consultation? Because it just jumps out. We do ask people to go through the right process and formally do it, and I'm just working out the weight that we should be giving to that. Thank you. That's my first one.
Yeah, just before you answer that, I just want to follow up with a question too, because this one's probably to the Chief Executive, and that is, does this set a precedent for Facebook consultation? The other one is when you make a submission that's public. I noticed that all the names have been removed, and redacted in that document. So that's something that I just want the Chief Executive to make some comment around the precedents. Thanks, Councillor Gilmore, for raising that.
We need to be careful about whether we're calling what we call consultation. This is engagement. This is about informal information gathering. The consultation, the special consultative procedure that the Local Government Act outlines that we must use when developing a bylaw would happen after A, you've decided to create a bylaw, and B, we have a draft to show them. So this is engagement.
And sort of further to answer that, I think this is a good way to do pre-consultation or pre-engagement. You can put whatever weight on that, I guess, you'd like. I think the important thing, and Angela summed it up quite nicely, you always will have the formal consultative process to follow that, which would be more typical of how we consult.
Jim, you've just got one comment.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is a new bylaw. So as a new bylaw, the legislation says we have to go through and create a thing called a regulatory impact statement. So basically, you have to show that there is a need for the bylaw. Otherwise, it's up for challenge. So we know that there's a need for the bylaw, and we'll go into those reasons later, but we also seek the opinions of the public, and it's at a very high level. So this is not consultation. Consultation will occur when we go out with the draft bylaw. This is simply a paper seeking permission from the council to realise that there is a need for the bylaw and to give us the rubber stamp to go away and develop a draft.
Thanks for that. Can I just follow up, Councillor Gilmore, you look like you've got one too. Can I just follow up in regards to the redacted names? So is an engagement in a normal process, would your engagement include who had fed into that? And I guess I just want to clarify that in my mind for anything going forward.
There shouldn't be any names on. There won't be. You won't have seen the names of the survey submitters and the information that's been tabled with this report, as well as having the names redacted from the Facebook posts. The Facebook comments I have included in the big data document where they state something specifically relating to the questions that were in the survey. Otherwise, they're supplementary information to the data.
Thanks for that clarification. Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. And probably important just to mention here, I was impressed with the level of information that came through in the report and the way that, your graphs and other things that showed it. And when I first jumped in, I had a look and thought, it would be so nice to see a comparison of people outside of the district and within, and I flicked the page and I'm like, perfect. So I want to thank you for that. It was really helpful. I suppose when I've looked through some of the comments and some of the feedback, some people were still uncertain as to whether there was a need for a bylaw. There certainly are some comments which I'm sympathetic to of, bylaws cost money to develop, they cost money to implement. So there is a cost. I know that we are being potentially, if we go ahead with this, supported in the development of it. But I wonder, and perhaps Mayor Tracy through you to Jim, who has to deal, or his team has to deal with some of the problems that exist, if you could give us a quick summary of two things. One being, what are, from your regulatory perspective, what are the problems that you are wanting to solve, potentially, with a bylaw? But then secondly to that, has there been any consideration to, are there any other ways that we could solve those problems? Thank you, Jim.
Through your worship, firstly, I'll just cover off the cost. So about 2 years ago, we applied for funding when the government realised there's an issue with freedom camping around the country. And they put up money for councils to apply for. We put a submission in for a grant, and we were successful in obtaining funds for initially the camping ambassador that we had out there a couple of years ago, and also for the development of the bylaw and for signage on the adoption of the bylaw. So there should be zero cost to us for the development of this bylaw. Secondly, the reason we need it is because the Freedom Camping Act is one of the few acts, litter is another one I can think of, where you are not allowed to issue an infringement unless you have a bylaw in place. So the bylaw feeds off the act. So once we have a bylaw adopted, then we have means of, achieving compliance. The only other way that we can do that is through the police with trespass notices, which is a fairly high, heavy-handed way to enforce people that set up camp for, forever. So, and the other reason is that as we don't have a bylaw, all the issues around freedom camping are spread throughout different bylaws that we have in attachments or policies. Policies are not enforceable. So what we're trying to do is put all the freedom camping rules, clarify them for a start, clarify where you can camp, clarify what sort of vehicle can camp there. Is it a tent or is it self-contained? And clarify how many days you can stay. And then once we've got that set in stone, we're able to enforce it. As far as enforcement goes, a dedicated ambassador would cost money. That's another topic for another day as far as funding for that goes. But we would still be acting on complaint-based investigations. So if we received a complaint, we'd shoot out there and we'd have a look. If that helps.
Thanks very much, Jim. And I'm glad that I asked you that question because I think it's actually a really handy one for anyone looking back to really understand why there's a proposal to put some of these things into place. I just want to pick up on one of your points of people staying somewhere forever, and that was my last question. My understanding is under the legislation and the freedom camping legislation that you referred to, that specifically excludes homelessness. So if someone is homeless, they cannot be enforced through this bylaw. And I do know, because I have heard some comments from people saying, this is great, we need that, because if there is a homelessness problem, this would be able to deal with that. I just want to be really clear, will this bylaw be able to do anything in relation to that?
Well, in a short answer, no, it's not directed at homeless people, and you're correct. There is a clause in there that in the Act that says it doesn't apply to people that have no other abode and are using their vehicle as their only means of living. But how the Act works is unless you have a bylaw which actually stipulates where you're not allowed to camp, you're allowed to camp anywhere. It doesn't work the other way around. So, and that's what gets the ire up of the NZMCA, when they council say, well, you can't camp anywhere but where we say. So it's around the other way, and so it's targeted at the freedom camping sites only. If we had a situation where someone was camping somewhere and they'd set up home and they're living in it, that we'd use other options if they're in a place where they shouldn't be.
Thank you. Councillor Johns.
Thank you, Mayor Tracy. Yes, well, you may be able to clarify the position then of an individual who is currently camping in the council car park outside the eyesight in Woodville. It has been for a couple of months at least, and is there 24 hours a day. Does that constitute freedom camping, or does that come under the latter description you just described?
Through your worship, that is not one of the proposed freedom camping sites. We are aware of that individual. We've spoken to him several times. The reason that he parks there is to access the free Wi-Fi, but yeah, time's probably running out for his length of stay there.
Or supplementary question. What ability have you got to shift them on under current legislation?
Current legislation, if it's council-owned ground, is the Trespass Act.
Okay. No, thank you, Bishop.
Thanks, Councillor Johns. Can I just check on page 222, you've listed Anzac Park as a freedom camping site, but Anzac Park has a sign on it where people are required to put money into Tararua District Council's bank account. Is it a paid, can you just confirm for me, is it a paid site or a free site? I guess that would depend on how many people actually pop those funds in as well.
Through your worship, I wasn't actually aware of that, but there may be the odd anomaly that pops up like that, but freedom camping means exactly that, free, unless we shift to a slightly different tack, which will be also probably explained for dialogue under the bylaw draft, and that is if we have a specific time, for example at Akatea, where there's in the summer months like when I was in Gisborne, they had a system where you could buy a permit to stay for so many days, and that money would go towards the council putting out a water reservoir and a trailer and a place to empty your porta potty, and you got a black rubbish bag for your rubbish, and they had a bin you could throw it in. So they covered that sort of thing, but that's all those options will be discussed.
Thank you. Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, so just through you, Mayor Tracy, just while you're on that, Jim, so what you're saying is people that have been there generational, and even if once this bylaw is developed, so it's not the end of the world, they can apply for a permit.
No, through your worship, at this point, we're not even talking about permits.
Yeah. I know that, but I'm just thinking,
to go there. But if we decided that, I don't know, it was so busy at Akatea, and to give fairness to everybody to have a turn at camping there, we may decide to introduce some permit or at a cost, but provide something, I don't know. But I mean, that's a future discussion. But we have certainly, we've looked hard at that. A lot of people don't have a lot of money. That could be the only camp they get, holiday they get. So we've tried to incorporate the ability to have tents in one area, self-contained vehicles in another, so that all sorts of families can have some sort of holiday, and just put rules on how long they can stay for.
Okay. Right. Thank you, councillors. If there's no further questions, we've got a recommendation on page 219, recommendation 1.1, that the report from the Policy and Planning Advisor concerning the freedom camping bylaw be received, and 1.2, that we approve the development of a freedom camping bylaw. Councillor Woods, have you got a question prior? That's okay.
We're moving so quickly onto that one. Through you, Your Worship, on 8.5, Jim and Angela, you've recommended there that you assess the capacity at Akatio. I'm keen to understand how you might do that. I mean, Mayor Tracy has been witness to one of the worst years where I think I counted 267 cars along the foreshore versus last summer that thankfully it rained most of the time, so the capacity was certainly not pumping. How might you do that? Assess the capacity?
Through you, Your Worship. We will need to figure that out. It's going to take a site visit and literally a walk around with the measuring tape and discussing with people and looking at what is practicable, and thinking about what options the bylaw might give us when we're thinking about how that might all fit, and be practical. Yeah.
And further to that, thank you, Your Worship, is I appreciate that within the context of this paper, you've indicated there might be areas where you allow tents versus the self-contained. Just curious to understand or to reflect on some of the behaviours that I've certainly observed at Akatio, where the toilet is right next door to the public barbecue, and we've observed over a number of summers how some families choose to camp round the barbecue and that becomes their little corner of the world, which hasn't allowed the whole reason we've put the barbecue there, which is for the public to access it. So I certainly appreciate what you were saying, Angela, that a bit of a site tutu is probably required in order to be able to work out which areas you designate for certain activity.
And through Your Worship, the signage that would be put up there, if there's areas like that, they need to be blanked out. You know, they normally have a map, and it's pretty easy to see. It'd be shaded out, no parking in this part, and if someone was having a bylaw, would give us the ability to move them on.
Thanks, Councillor Woods. One of the suggestions I'd make as part of that capacity assessment would be around water usage as well, just what pressures that puts on if that's part of those considerations. Councillor Franklin.
Thank you. Just another little request, please, on page 230. It's the Mangatinoka Reserve, not Mangatinoka. Terrible spelling, sorry.
In the Freedom Camping Ambassadors Report, page 230. Yeah. Councillor Long.
Through you, Mayor Tracy. Jim, thank you very much, and Angela for the report. I appreciate you talking about the people that can't afford excessive holidays, and this is one of their domains. This policy, this bylaw is never going to fix everything. The people, you've got 300, 200 people in Akatea, no matter what bylaw you put in place, it's not going to control it. My concern or worry is that do we have the staff and resources to monitor and enforce these bylaws? And will we be employing extra staff over holiday periods, particularly holiday periods, to enforce these things? You've got 2 hours travel from Dannevirke to Akatea and things like that in Bongaroa.
Through Your Worship, we do have a close, we will probably operate on CRMs. It'll be, at this point, I'm not in a position to say whether we're going to hire a camping ambassador again.
Thanks, Jim. Councillor Wallace.
Because of the volume and people, as you say, that's there out for the year. they're recharging their batteries, and you know, some of them are unfortunately in that position. Is there any other room that we can develop out there? Because I know there's, from that report this morning, you look at the areas like that, and as far as if I was going somewhere, I'd take my own water. You know, when you go bush, you take your own water, because there ain't no council tap up there or council shower. There's the sea and there's a bottle of water I took with me, but you know what I mean? Because I don't want to be the grudge council of the district. I want to be the happy council for people that can grow, because if this is going back to well-being, you know, well-being of people, but I respect the people that have worked hard and got their own deal going too. So I think this is a really, yeah, it's not an easy place to be in this position, but we've got to make decisions. But I really hope this reflects in a way that's fair to all, because happy people reduce costs in a whole lot of other areas. You know, I'm talking vandalism, I'm talking disgruntled people. You get happy people, you get happy lives. You get happy lives, all of us grow. All of us benefit.
Thanks, Councillor Wallace. I guess one of the things in talking about growing other areas is the minute that you open something else up, we get the requests in for additional facilities and toilets and costs to ratepayers. So I've been quite clear, and we do get a lot of those requests. Councillor Chase.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Tracy. If we were to go forward with the Freedom Campaign bylaw, will you be also identifying all the areas within the Tararua districts where they can be able, where this bylaw will be affected? And is there any Freedom Campaign inhibitable?
We think we would suggest that the only places people could freedom camp are the sites, these council-owned land sites in the report, and no to Herbertville. We've recently resolved an issue there and removed that site from our website as a potential Freedom Campaign site, so we wouldn't be promoting that area.
Privately owned land. It's privately owned land out there, so we believe we've found, well, listed all of the sites, almost, you know, of the sites in the whole district. So.
Does that question?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we're going to identify all the Freedom Campaign sites when we put this bylaw together.
No further questions. Okay, we've got a recommendation on page 219. Can I have someone move that? Thank you, Councillor Johns. Can I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Wards. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thanks for your work on that one. It is a tough one, certainly, when we get complaints and we get, you know, after COVID, when Akatio was just absolutely slammed. I've never seen anything like it out, you know, out into the 70k zone. This is when you need a bylaw and to have some rules around it. So thank you very much for putting that together. Right, we'll move on to item 9.5, the deliberations on matters during traffic and road use bylaw consultation. Everyone's getting ready. Right, welcome Angela and Jim to the hot seat.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, I have a note that I have not put in the report, just a reminder that the Schedule 3, Clause 3A in the Public Places Bylaw will be moved into the Traffic and Road Use Bylaw when it's adopted.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
no, it'll be revoked.
Oh, revoked
public
altogether.
place.
Yes,
Yeah.
sorry. In the Public Places Bylaw, we have a Schedule 3. It has Clause 3A, and in the conversations around that bylaw, it was agreed that that particular section would be revoked.
It's in direct conflict to the new bylaw, contradiction, so we can't have that.
So sorry, I omitted that from the report.
Thanks. I think that's a really good point for anyone watching, and this is a high interest item in regards to that. Councillor Gilmore, you've got a question straight up.
Yeah, I do. Thank you very much, Your Worship. I just want to really double check, and I agree with Your Worship that is high public interest. So I do just want to double check with the passing of this that particularly in the report, I think it's 1.8 where it's talking about the schedule being removed, that will remove the requirement for the traffic management plan that was quite controversial through our last deliberations and discussions. So, and I'll have some further comments to make at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Through Your Worship, yes, we are. It's an old requirement that was in the existing bylaw for the last 7 years that will be revoked on adoption of this bylaw. There may still be a need for a TMP as explained before, but high risk areas.
Thank you for that. Councillor Johns and Councillor Wards.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. No, thank you both for the additional thought that's been given to this subject since our last discussion. I think you've captured the intent and the issues quite well, and I'm happy with the extent to which we can do and act if it's so desired. But no, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Johns. Councillor Wards.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm not sure how you want to tackle this, but I do have a question around 6.3. Jim and Angela, you've stated there in quotes that the parking of a heavy motor vehicle, no person may stop, stand or park, blah, 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 on a road or other land under the control or ownership of council. Now, what happens on our main street? Because I don't know whether it was a Facebook post or the grapevine had got going, but in the last few weeks I've noticed 2 rather large trucks and trailers parking on the main street. One of them down near Rahiri, and I thought, never noticed this one before. Are they starting to get wind of what we might be thinking? So the question mark I have against that under 6.3, Jim, is NZTA control state highway, and do we have any say in what might or might not be parked on that road?
Through Your Worship, NZTA do look after state highways. I believe we have the
do you get delegated
after it within our township through the town. Speaking to Andrew, yeah. So what we've changed there is if the heavy motor vehicle is causing a nuisance. Before it was a heavy motor vehicle in an area under the district plan deemed as residential, causing issues. So on that area, it's actually commercial for quite some distance. Is the or are the trucks that you're referring to causing a nuisance in some way?
Well, not personally to me, but I was just curious. I'd never seen the size of these trucks parked along the main street overnight. I mean, there used to be some down where the motel is, but I'd never actually observed it. I thought, I wonder if they've got wind that we might have control over the streets running off the main street. But I guess I'm seeking clarification then. Have we got the authority to, from the Mangatara through to Rawiti Street or the entrance that comes out, have we as council accountable for applying this bylaw to them, or is NZTA responsible? I guess that's my overarching question.
Through Your Worship, we would. And there is one portion that the police can as well, which is in the hours of darkness displaying a red rear marker light on the heavy motor vehicle. So.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. I certainly appreciated the changes in that. I think that will be much more acceptable. But certainly note that outside, those motels, there's 2 motels on the high street, and including in Pahiatua, they have got a little bit better room to park there, but I certainly wouldn't want to distract from those using that. I've got Councillor Gilmore, then Councillor Chase.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. And Jim, thank you very much for all the work that you and the team have done on this. We did receive, I think, some really, really good submissions on this. There was some, and hence it was my question about some of the Facebook commentary, which I'm glad we clarified, but there was some really good points raised through that medium too. And I think following the submissions process and the hearings process, you'll be well aware that I was opposed to things as they stood. So I wanted to just give a thank you for a start for working through some of those concerns, and I think you did it in a very, very, very constructive way, and in my opinion, where you've landed now alleviates the high-level concerns that came through in the submissions, and frankly, the ones that I held personally. I was particularly very opposed to some of the heavy vehicle restrictions, but I am glad that you still have the ability to be able to deal with problems, and that's always my key concern when we're dealing with bylaws of what's the problem, how might we be able to deal with it. So I'm grateful for your compromise on that, and I absolutely will be supporting it. The other part that I'm grateful for is your clarification as to the berm or the verge parking. Including that picture within there makes a really big difference. I mean, that was something I was particularly concerned about, particularly if I need to go and visit my great colleague, Councillor Johns, who has a very narrow road to be parking on there, but I know that a lot of people would find that as well. And then almost as importantly from all of this, the pleasure that we'll have if this is adopted, or once this is adopted, assuming it will be, to be removing that traffic management part as we've just discussed, so things are falling into place. So just a quick comment to say I do now support this, and I'm very, very grateful to Jim and the team's work and the compromise, so thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Gilmore. Did you?
Just through your worship, thank you for those comments, and I think it highlights the importance to everyone who might be out there watching that it is important to make submissions, and we do look at them and we do consider them. And in this case, there were some quite valid submissions, and Tararua, it's quite unique in some ways in how there's a lot of rural areas very close to urban deemed areas, and the parking, because the initial bylaw was very much repeated like around the country. So we took on board the submissions, and we took on board the concerns of some councillors, in particular the Woodville ones, which have this issue, and we always want to work with the council to get it across the line. So hopefully we'll be successful.
Thanks, Jim. Councillor Chase, and then I've got Councillor Sutherland and Councillor Wallace.
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor Tracy. When we put this bylaw together, will we actually be having a definition to what is considered a nuisance in it? So that,
Through you, Your Worship, it's quite general, but in the way we've referred to it in this bylaw is it could be grass damage, it could be the breaking of a berm, it could be somebody parking half their truck on a footpath and breaking the footpath, or it could be parking in an area where a lot of the infrastructure underground, the underground services get damaged with the weight pressing down. So we would consider as a council that as a nuisance. But then again, you've got the nuisance from the smell and odour of, say, a stock truck. So it encompasses a lot of things, but we would define nuisance as the Oxford Dictionary's definition.
Thank you. Councillor Sutherland.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. I just concur with Scott's comments. I think the process has been great. The submissions, a lot of submissions from really good people, and that's been a really good process. And Jim's comments were very valid, actually, about the benefits of this. Just a question, really, Jim, technical question, really. So I was one bit concerned about the heavy vehicles, but just 6 point. I just wanted just make sure the parking for 5 days, which was that one now. Oh yeah, okay. So 6.4, we've got the one that we don't want anyone parking for 5 days, if it's observed by a council officer. So the intention of that clause, a vehicle, which includes all vehicles, I guess, is that 5 days consecutively, or 5 days if a person takes it away and brings it back? The intention that is it somewhere where the vehicle is not going to move for 5 days? Is that the sort of intention? Or
through you, Your Worship, the 5 days is consecutive days. So it actually stems from the requirement under the road user rule, which applies to any type of trailer, which you can't park on a roadway for more than 5 days, covering boats, caravans, and trailers. So we want to try and capture the person with a motorhome that might decide to park his motorhome out on the street all the time and annoy all the neighbours and block visibility and things like that.
That's all good. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Tracy. Yeah, this bit of work here has been great, and it just shows us what we can and probably appease to what people are asking for, in a logical sense. So I just agree with Kerry and the rest of the people in the room here. It can be done, and we can design things to make things better for all. Because I can, what I'm alluding back to, I can remember a truck getting hit down where a place was, and the person died from that result. So, because they didn't have the illuminated light on that night. So this is where it does come in to good thought. But it's great to think we are a rural district. There are places for trucks, because we need trucks. We don't have rail. So, yeah, well done.
Thanks, Councillor Wallace. Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Sorry to jump back in. I just remembered another question on the bylaw not covered within the document that I just wanted to quickly double check. And in the proposed bylaw, there was under parking, and I'll read it out. You won't need to find it because you'll probably be able to answer it quite quickly. But 6.2 specifically talked about a vehicle or a trailer displaying advertising or sales material, so requiring authorisation for any vehicle displaying advertising or sales material on the road or any piece of road. You'll probably be familiar with that. I just wanted to double check that wouldn't include sign-written vehicles. I mean, I know that we have a very good electrician here in Dannyvirk who's parked on a council street, but inadvertently, a lot of our business owners will obviously have sign-written vehicle that could be construed as advertising, and I don't want to inadvertently capture those.
Through you, Worship, I've heard he's a live wire. No, it doesn't apply to sign-written vehicles. It's purely for large signage, and it has to align with our district plan requirements for signage as well. It's distraction to traffic. Yeah.
Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, I've got a large load to get very shortly.
Thank you. Right, are there any further questions? Okay. Right, councillors, we've got recommendations on page 313 and 314. Do you want me to read those out, or would someone like me to move those in bulk? Okay, Councillor Gilmore, you're happy to move those. Seconded by Councillor Johns. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. And I think, Jim, I concur, the pragmatic way that you've listened to submissions, gone back and found solutions to those to make them work for our district is absolutely to be commended, but also to show members of the public that when they do submit and make those comments to us, that they are listened to, and we do our best to manage those expectations and make that rule clear. So, no, well done on this, and I think there'll be some very, very happy truckies. No, we wouldn't have. Angela.
Just wanted to add an extra thank you, since they've been directed at us and the team, to Ellie, because she's been very helpful in producing the reports and making sure we get that right.
Yes.
Thank you very, very much. Look forward to that. Congratulations. Thanks, Ellie. Right, we're on to Ellie's fantastic report that we all enjoy, 9.6, the request for information under the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act. Ellie, did you want to speak to your report?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll take the report as read. I just wanted to highlight an additional graph that I've included because I thought it would be quite interesting to track Lagoima requests by the team and council that they get assigned to, because whenever a request comes in, say it was something to do with roading, then I'd assign that out to Andrew Desmond's team to provide the technical response to. So I thought it'd be quite interesting to track that this year, just to see where, how they lie across council.
Certainly demonstrates the additional workload onto particular areas and teams. Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I just wanted to quickly comment on this as thank you. Sometimes we don't comment on this because we're getting it each month, but the level of transparency, Ellie, is really high within this report, but also with the proactive release of information. I find it really useful for myself, but one thing I've been able to do is I've been able to refer people to other Lagoima requests, so they'll ask me for something and I'll say, I know there's already been one similar to that, and I've sent them a link. Should not be lost on anyone how much time goes in to this level of transparency. So I just wanted to say I'm really grateful for your effort and the quality of the information that, with the help of all of those areas within council, you get out to people. So thank you very much, Ellie.
Absolutely concur with that. Councillor Wards.
Thanks, Your Worship. I probably should know this answer through you, Mayor Tracy, to Ellie. What constitutes correspondence? And I know you're smiling because there is a reason, but I think given the situation that has happened recently, I think it would be a cogent reminder to all of us as to what Brian and Ellie might have to look for when they're asked through a Lagoima. So can you please just remind all of us, Ellie, what constitutes correspondence?
I'm not sure if the question is about correspondence, but is it about what information can be Lagoimed? It's anything. Texts, emails. If it's an email to an elected member on their private email address, if it's to do with council, that's Lagoimerable as well. So, and text as well. Yeah.
That's what I was after.
True, and reminded by Chief Executive, it's also your knowledge, what knowledge you hold inside your head. Mm.
Yeah.
Thanks, and I think the other reminder is that that is all elected members. That includes our community boards as well. So, yeah, good reminder there. Yeah. I really value it. I actually go through all of them as well and read through, it's interesting to see what people are asking and that level of transparency, but you also learn along the way. So the one regarding One Music, New Zealand for Music licensing fees. I had a look at that and I had a look at how much we pay, and I'm still left sort of wondering where we play music. So if the chief executive can to let me know, so if we play music on the phones, we can save quite a few $1,000s just by playing the radio. Councillor Wallace, could you play some music for us and we'll get it for free? Councillor Wallace.
To be fair, that would be the only way you could get around it, because anything that's, and I'd have to write the chart, because I'd have to own it and give up the copyright to it. Because even when I was in another business, even if we didn't use the machines, we had to pay. And to be fair, that I don't own the music. So I leased the music to pay because we were getting financial gain. But in your case, you're running a business, and it's, so yeah, no, that's the way we live, that's the world.
No, that's great, thank you. So now I know it's through the phones.
Supplementary, I could write you a chart.
Thanks, Councillor Wallace. There's nothing further on that report. Can I have somebody move that we receive it? Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Seconded. Councillor Johns. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Okay. Right, that brings us to portfolio reports. Is there anything anyone wishes to raise? Councillor Franklin?
Thank you, Worship. I'll just bring you up to date with the Horizons passenger transport. Had a meeting last week, and I was really impressed actually, because Sam Ferguson, who chairs that committee, actually congratulated Tararua District Council and me for attending the meetings, given we were given nothing out of the whole NZTA cutting of funds and missing out on our little route across the hills. And so it was really appreciated, because I just feel like, and I do believe even next term, we should still continue to have somebody on that committee, because it is actually it's a really good networking opportunity. And if you're not there, you can't be heard. So, yeah, so it was really good. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Franklin, and that's 6 years now that we've had somebody sitting there, because we did have nothing. It's very difficult. It was fantastic that what you achieved to get to the table, and certainly, look, we are within the mix, so we've come a long way. And I think as the new road opens, the demand for that will become stronger and stronger. So at least we have a plan. Just wait on some government funding. Yep, thank you. Is there anything further under portfolio reports? Yep, Councillor Chase.
Yes, through you, Mayor Tracy. I was privileged to attend the pōhuri for Te Kahu Hauora, pōhuri for their new doctors and medical staff, as well as the kaimahi for their Ngāti Kahungunu ki Tamaki Nui Aroa health services that they will be providing for the community. I have seen an update that they've had put a pause on some of the registrations because it's already reached 1,000 already. They can only take up to 2,000, I understand, but it is growing in popularity, which is great for the community. I also attended their hapukaranga hui last night to talk about the Wairarapa Trust ki Tamaki Nui Aroa and their structural plans and what it is that the whānau wanted to get from their representatives on the board, on the PSGE board. So that has been interesting as well. So that's me so far.
Thanks, Councillor Chase. That's fantastic. And I did pop along to one of their sessions where they had the public meetings around talking about what people wanted from health, and actually listening to what the community wanted and taking it from there. So it's a really exciting model. I'm not surprised they've had such great support. Okay. Councillor Sutherland? No? Okay. Right, there's nothing further there. I don't have anything to date today in mayoral matters. So with that, I will ask somebody if we can move please into public excluded. Move to Councillor Ward, seconded Councillor Sutherland. All those in favour please say aye. Against, thank you. Thank you. There are no further items that weren't on the agenda, so that concludes today's meeting. Thank you very much, and I hope everyone's enjoying this online. I'll close with our district whakataaki. Let the wind, sorry, Councillor Wallace.
Sorry, Your Worship, I just want to capture this moment if I could. Just noting that we won't publicly, this is more for the public, that this year, while we've been on RSA things, this from the RSA, it's going out as Poppy Month. So please be aware that the poppies are coming on sale earlier. So thank you for letting me advertise.
Thanks for that, Councillor Wallace. And I think one of the things that is important to understand with the poppies is that that is the veterans' way of fundraising to support veterans. It is their only way of fundraising. So even if you recycle your poppy, if you can pop a donation in, great. Thanks for that. Okay. Let the winds of the Ruahine and Tararua give you strength. Let the waters of the Manawatu nourish you. For we are the pounamu of Te Tāpiri Nui o Whātonga. Kia ora.